The pool stages are over, and boy, did they end in a spectacular way. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. So pool stages are over now, and focus is going to quickly turn to the quarterfinals. But before we do that, I want to reflect back at the pools and also just this final week of the pools as well, because there were some interesting things that happened with it. And I'm going to start on maybe a bit of a downer and talk about some disappointments from the pool stage. And there were two big disappointments for me. The first one was Italy. I was right behind this Italian team, not thinking they're gonna make the quarterfinals. Didn't even think that they'd beat either France or New Zealand, but I thought they'd give them a game, and I thought that people would come out of this Rugby World Cup thinking, God, Italy are getting better, aren't they? They almost beat whoever, whether it's France or New Zealand, and it would be kind of almost a statement World Cup for them, where they kind of put all that crap that we hear every single year about Italy should be kicked out of the Six Nations, blah blah blah, and just get rid of that. Because for me, removing teams from the Six Nations is not the way to go. It's not the way we're going to grow rugby. We've seen nations in this World Cup that rightly should be, they should have a pathway into a Six Nations. I'm not saying put them in now. I'm saying where is our 5, 10, 15 year plan to say this is what is going to happen with these teams, and they're going to be brought into an expanded Six Nations, or where it becomes 10 nations, or wherever you want to call it, right? But we don't really have that. But back to Italy. So I'm so disappointed, and I probably shouldn't, because I'm not Italian, I'm an Irish fan, but I watch a lot of Italian rugby. And when I say that, it's not just test matches. I watch a lot of Benetton and Zebre because I cover URC on the channel, and before that I just love watching rugby. And because my team Leinster in the URC, I watch lots of URC, and then obviously watch the Champions Cup as well. But I probably watched easily more than a dozen games of Benetton and Zebre this year, because I've watched probably every game that they played against the Irish provinces, and some that they played against South Africans or whoever, right? So I've watched tons of them, and I've seen the improvements they've been making year on year as well. And then I just feel so disappointed for the Italian players, because they seem like a great group of players, and the fans as well. Italian fans, they bring something to the game as well. And I've talked to Italian fans before, who are just as passionate about their rugby as anyone from Wales or Ireland or Scotland or South Africa or New Zealand or wherever, right? And then just the whole thing of that game against France, where Lamoureux was taken off 3 minutes into the second half. What was the idea of that? And he was completely bemused himself. What was the idea of, if you're going to bring him off that close to halftime, bring him off at halftime and save him the embarrassment of the captain being hooked 3 minutes into the second half. What could have changed between the start of that half to that 3 minute period that made Kieran Crowley think, yep, got to hook Lamoureux now? I just don't get it. Give him until 50 minutes even. Give him 10 minutes and then take him off. That I could bear. But yeah, I'm not sure. It seems like a bitter end. Kieran Crowley did a lot for Italy, but it seems like a very bitter end to his association with them. And doesn't kind of sit well with me. I don't know what's going on, so I'm not going to speculate on who's in the wrong or wherever on that. It just didn't look good, and didn't feel good either. But yeah, we leave that one there. But Italy were a disappointment, but I'm disappointed for their fans and just Italian rugby in general. The next one then is another one that's kind of a little bit personal to me, and that's Australia. It wasn't. The thing is, Australia losing the games they lost wasn't actually a shock, and that just speaks to how far Australian rugby has dropped in kind of in the global game. You know, it used to be that Australia would think, okay, they're definitely getting to quarter final. They've got a cheeky chance, you know, at getting to a semi final, and then from there they could end up in the final. We saw it even like not great Australian teams still making Rugby World Cup finals, but this team, you know, I honestly don't know what's going on. Like Eddie Jones, now he's won 2 of his 9 games since he's come back. Now the first 5, you know, you can argue were pretty difficult because it was, you know, Argentina, the Springboks, twice against New Zealand and once against France. But then they lost against Wales and Fiji in the pool, and they only beat Georgia, and Georgia that hadn't turned up to the tournament yet, like first up, and then Portugal, and that was it. So, you know, not a great win record for him, and you know, I expected even. Like he decided, let's back youth and bring them to the tournament. But then, like he made Carla Gordon his only 10, hooked him in, hooked him half time of the second last game, then dropped him for the last game. And it's, you know, it just again, it's kind of beggars belief, like the way it is. And Eddie's supposed to be in there for, you know, I think they've got the Lions tour right in 2 years' time, and then the next World Cup they're going to be the hosts. So, but I honestly can't see him still being the coach at the next World Cup, because I don't think that Australian rugby will be as patient with him as maybe they were in the past. That I think it's almost like after this being knocked out of the World Cup now, it's just one more excuse, you know, one more thing that goes against him, and maybe they're going to be looking for another coach, you know, and it's not a good way to be. Like the ARU, they don't seem to do long-term planning. It's all like reactionary and short-term stuff, and that's why I'm expecting that if there is another problem with Eddie around, it could even be off the field stuff. It doesn't even have to be the performance of the team. It might be that he is out the door and they're looking to bring somebody else in, but then who did they bring in? I'm not sure. But that's that. We'll move on. The next thing I want to talk about then is a more positive thing from the Pearl stages, and that is the minnows. So the likes of Uruguay, Portugal, and Chile, like in their pools, did so well. Like, you know, they only won, 2 games between them, but still, you know, one of them was a massive victory, an amazing statement. And even in the games that they lost, they were playing with a smile on their face, and they really brightened up the tournament as well. Like Georgia, towards the end, they decided to get in on the act and actually start performing, you know, just kind of at the point where it was a little bit too late for them. But, you know, even Namibia and Romania, they got absolutely destroyed in most of their games, but they'd still never give up. They were, you know, and some of their players were excellent as well. You know, I think you could take some of the teams that got eliminated, like I'm not talking about the 4th and 5th place teams, and you could put a fairly decent team that together from that would fancy its chances of getting out with some of the pools that were in this Rugby World Cup. You know, that's the kind of quality of player you have on there. Not all across the board, obviously, because that's why they finished where they were in the pools. But still, you know, yeah, these teams absolutely helped the tournament and made the pool stages much more enjoyable. I think their fans as well were great. And, you know, that's the thing, is that like fans of whatever team it happens to be, whether it's, you know, Italian fans being disappointed or Portuguese fans being absolutely delighted with their first win, they're the same as any fans, whether it's from Ireland or you know, South Africa, New Zealand, France, England, wherever. They're passionate about their rugby, they're knowledgeable about their team, they're knowledgeable about global rugby as well, and they bring their culture with them as well, and having that in the mix is great. And that's why, I think that after this Rugby World Cup, somebody has to be thinking of how do we help these teams, expand rugby in their nations, because we're not going to grow rugby in France or New Zealand or Ireland or South Africa, strong teams who have already well-established systems. You're not going to make huge strides forward in the men's game, at least in those countries. But in places like Portugal or Spain that didn't even qualify, or Belgium or Canada, or Chile or wherever you want to say, there's huge chances to grow the game, but we just seem to want this closed shop of Six Nations and the Rugby Championship, and everyone else. Sorry, there's no games for Tier 1 against Tier 1 teams from you outside the World Cups, and there's no money coming. Realistically, there's no money coming for you. Whereas for me, that's ass backwards. The money from the top of the game should be going to Tier 2 and Tier 3 to make them stronger nations, because if you do that, then suddenly the market for rugby becomes so much bigger, because now you have fans from all of these nations who want to get in on rugby and who are buying All Blacks jerseys or Springboks jerseys or wherever it happens to be, and they're putting money back into the game, and they're paying for subscriptions to watch on the internet, or to watch certain tournaments, or this, that and the other, or buying tickets to go to games. And you just made the pie so much bigger. I think the problem with rugby now is that the way it's done is that everyone is just worried about how big their slice of the pie is, rather than making the pie bigger. And I think that's what rugby needs to do. We need to make the pie bigger, and you do that by lifting up these nations and making it a truly global game, where we should be talking about not just the brilliant teams that were at the Rugby World Cup, but the brilliant teams that didn't even make it to the World Cup. That's the level it should be at. We should say, look at this amazing player from this nation, or this nation couldn't get to the World Cup because it's so competitive to get there. We're not there yet, but hopefully we can get there in the future. But World Rugby's World League, or whatever it's called, I don't think is the answer. That's a way of refilling the coffers of the already rich unions at the expense of the tier 2 and Tier 3 nations. So hopefully they have a rethink and they realize, hang on, there's actual potential in the game. We're just looking in the wrong place. But we'll move on. Next thing then I want to talk about is the Irish invasion of France and Paris in particular for the game against Scotland. It just on TV, it just looked crazy. It looked like almost a home game for Ireland. With the noise coming from the crowd, and just reports I got. I was speaking to a couple today. Guys is Kiwi, the guy is a Bok, and the lady was a Kiwi, and they were at some of the games, like against New Zealand against Namibia, South Africa against Romania, that kind of thing. Ones that were they say they could get tickets for, but they'd come from Paris, and they were in Paris over the weekend, and they said they couldn't believe how many Irish people are over there. And when they came to Ireland, they were expecting the place to be empty because there were so many Irish over in France. So Irish fans, when we don't often do well in sporting tournaments, and we actually don't qualify for that many World Cups, but when we do, we travel in numbers. And it's the same with the provinces as well. When the provinces do well, our fans travel in numbers. And I think that's a credit to the Irish fans, that there are fans who their holiday for this year isn't going off to Thailand or going to Disneyland or wherever. It's the Rugby World Cup, and they've probably saved for it since the last Rugby World Cup, and this has been their thing to do. And it's kind of I think is a great mentality, and I wish I was able to do it. My plan was actually to be at most of the Ireland games for this, but things didn't work out so much. But hopefully the next World Cup, because I've never been to Australia, so I'll set my sights on that and see what happens with that. But I think it's great the way rugby fans are, the way everybody can mix from different nations. I've been to plenty of Rugby World Cup games in the past. Being Irish, some of them disappointing, but after the game, everyone is still friends. You can have a chat with people about how the game was and this, that, and the other, and where they're from or wherever, and it's just a great thing. And World Cups are so great for that, just bringing the rugby family together, and the family really is the fans. It's not the administrators or even the players. Like, the players are kind of part of it, I guess, but the fans are kind of separate, but still part of it, if you like. And it's just really nice to do that, and seeing so many Irish over there kind of makes you proud. I don't know why, but it does make me proud. But the next thing then that we're going to talk about is just the pool standings. So just run down through how the pools actually finished. So Pool A, you got France on top with 18, New Zealand second with 15. They both qualified for the quarterfinals. Italy next on 10, Uruguay with 5, and Namibia with 0. So it means Italy have automatically qualified for the 2027 World Cup in Australia. Then Pool B, Ireland at the top there with 19, South Africa with 15, Scotland 10. They then qualify for Australia as well. Tonga with 5, Romania with 0. Pool C then we have on the top there is Wales with 19, Fiji with 11, Australia with 11. So Fiji actually went through on the head-to-head rule against Australia, so they almost blew it. But Australia, they qualified for next World Cup, but they're hosts anyway, so they're going to be in it. I don't think Australia will be happy if they weren't allowed to play in their own World Cup. But then Portugal was 6, really great for them, and Georgia at the bottom there with 3. Then Pool D, you got England at the top there, Argentina with 14, they progressed to the quarterfinals. Japan with 9, they qualify automatically for Australia. Samoa with 7, and Chile with 0. So at the start of I'd say at the start of or before the Rugby World Cup, the qualifiers from Pool A and Pool B, most people would have picked, honestly. I was afraid of Scotland causing an upset, but it would have been an upset, honestly, for them to beat Ireland at the weekend. But most people, I think, predicted that it would be France, New Zealand, and Ireland, South Africa, in whatever order coming out of those two pools. On to Pool C then, I think looking at the way teams came in to this Rugby World Cup, I would have said Fiji will get out of the pool, and it would be one of Wales and Australia, because both of them were in such poor form, with Georgia potentially having an outside chance. Now, Georgia didn't turn up, as it turns out, but it wasn't as predictable, I would say, as the first two pools. And then Pool D looked beforehand like it was, between any two of the four that finished in the top 4 could go through. England actually played themselves into some pretty okay form until Samoa, and they went backwards again. But still, Japan and Samoa, they definitely had chances to qualify. Japan, we'll talk about their performance, but they had that chance against Argentina but couldn't take it. Okay, so there's that. And then next then we're going to talk about the actual performances from week 5, so the end of the pool. So New Zealand 73, Uruguay 0. So New Zealand again, they're the best team in the world at when they're on top, they keep the foot on the throat. It never comes off. They always want more points and more points and more points. A lot of other teams, Ireland included, will kind of back off a little bit, and then the other team will score 1 or 2 tries. But New Zealand, no. They just keep on going, and they keep on hammering it home. I think part of it is because when they make changes, the players that come in, the drop off from first choice to second choice is not as big as pretty much any other nation because of the depth of player that they have. They can go down to potentially third and fourth choice in a position and not lose that much in terms of the performance of the player. Uruguay, they still did well in the game. They got no points, but they had flashes in the game, and they defended. Every New Zealand try, New Zealand had to work for it. They weren't gifted any tries really from Uruguay, and there was none of this kind of, oh, it's near the end of the game, let's just let's just let them score the tries and be done with this. They were still fighting right up to the final whistle, which is great. Then France against Italy, can't say the same for Italy, unfortunately. France, though, coming back, hitting form again, going into the knockout stages, and then now they have players coming back as well. Boy back, Marchand apparently is close to return. You had Dante back, and just talk of Dupont is potentially going to play in the quarterfinal as well. So great performance from them in that one. Italy, though, 2 per performances back to back. This is better than the New Zealand one, but it couldn't get any worse than it was. On to then Wales 43, Georgia 19. So Georgia really put it up to Wales in this game, and Wales kind of had to fight to get that win in the end. Like, they did come through in the end, and that doggedness might help them when they go into that quarterfinal, because it's hard to say in that quarterfinal who's the favorite really, between, like, it's Wales versus Argentina, and it's difficult based on this to say whether Wales have, they're definitely in better form they were in the Six Nations or the warm-ups, that's undoubted, but whether they're in the kind of performance that will see them into a semi-final and be competitive in a semi-final if they get there. Georgia, good to see them actually competing again, because, as I said, the start of this pool, they seem to have just not arrived at the tournament at all, and then they kind of woke up and started to perform. So good to see them actually put in a performance that they can at least be proud of right at the end. And then England 18, Samoa 17. Samoa was so close to the first time ever beating England, and England just about dug it out in the end with that that try right at the end. Who was it? Was it Danny Kerr went over? I think it was. But they were so close to losing that one, and they'd gotten better and better all through the pool stage, and you thought, okay, they're doing well. It's Samoa will give them a game, but England will be able to win it and maybe pull away a little bit at the end, but it didn't happen, and they almost lost it, and that's got to be a worry for England, I think, going into their quarterfinal. Samoa, they realistically, they had a chance to qualify from this pool. They kind of blew it in their middle games and then came back strong at the end. So at least they finished on a high there. Then we have Ireland 36, Scotland 14. Ireland were amazing. They were so good, and it's weird being optimistic about Ireland going into a quarterfinal, because normally we're either out, we get knocked out in the pool stages, or we scrape through and the other team are the favourites for the quarterfinal. But this was a great performance from them. Would have liked, though, to see, after Scotland got their couple of tries, Ireland actually scoring again, just to re-establish themselves towards the end, because that could be important against the All Blacks, where the game will be tighter and the All Blacks might be scoring a couple of tries late on to go ahead and to make Ireland chase the game. So just being able to re-engage when we kind of took our foot off the gas a little bit would have been nice. Scotland, they talked all week about they were going to end Ireland's run, and they were bringing thunder and this, that and the other, and they weren't going to leave anything to regret, and etc. But then they turned up and they just didn't they didn't perform. Ireland didn't let them perform, but still, after all that talk, I would have expected more. And, you know, I have a lot of time for Scotland fans. I know there's, like, for whatever reason, there's niggle between Ireland and Scotland at times. For me, like, I like Scottish people. And, you know, if somebody's a rugby fan, for starters, I'm going to like them because I love talking rugby. So it's hard for me to you know, to have a kind of an instant dislike to someone just because they're a rugby fan from whatever nation. I don't think it's going to happen. If they're an asshole, fair enough. But, you know, if they're just a general fan, then, like, I feel for them because I've been there before. Ireland, every Ireland fan has been there before with Ireland, unless you're very, very young. And we know what it feels like to be the team who thought they were, you know, best prepared. The last time it was on in France, I was there at every single one of our games. I even had a ticket for the quarterfinal that got refunded because we didn't make the quarterfinal. But we were told this is the best prepared Ireland team ever. We've got some of the, you know, greatest players that'll ever play for Ireland in our squad, and we're finally going to make that semi-final, and it didn't happen. So I know exactly how it feels to bomb out in the pools in France in the Rugby World Cup. And I know actually being there in the stadium when it happened, and it was terrible, terrible feeling. But yeah, Scotland, listen, you know, they're good players, but they need, for me, the focus has to be on Glasgow and Edinburgh and getting them to the point where they're winning things consistently, the way the Irish provinces do. That, and you get that winning mentality in your team, and suddenly things at test level can change. But on to the next one. So Japan 27, Argentina 39. Japan, you know, they kept coming back, and Argentina coming back, but then suddenly Argentina pulled out a lead, and Japan weren't able to respond. I would have loved to see Japan go through, you know, as my second team, but it wasn't to be. And in fairness, it wasn't deserved either. This Japan team is a shadow of the 2019 team, and, you know, they need, I don't know what's going to happen with them. I was hoping that they would be added to the Rugby Championship, but that doesn't seem to be on the horizon for them at the moment. So I'm not sure what the answer is for them. Argentina, they are consistently inconsistent. Put in a decent performance there. Now probably going to be poor in their quarterfinal. That's just the way they've been all year, as far as I can tell. Then next one, Tonga 45, Romania 24. Romania, what a performance from them. Great to see them finishing the tournament on a high, even if it's not a win. Tonga as well, getting their win. And this is one where there's positives for both teams coming out. And it's great to see that, because generally the last game in the pool, you don't actually see that, because one team is going home and the other team is potentially going on to the knockout stages. But in here, it's positives all around. So great to see there. Then the final one, Fiji 23, Portugal 24. So Portugal, amazing achievement from them to get their very first win in a Rugby World Cup. Well deserved too. They just kept going at it, and they stuck to their principles, you know, throwing the ball around. The game was absolutely mad. It was crazy. There was no rhyme or reason to what was happening most of the time, because both teams were just flinging the ball around. It was going forward. Teams would counter off that, and then they'd make a mistake, and then we'd eventually have to come back for a scrum. But it was very entertaining as well. Fiji, though, it's not a great way for them to just fall into the quarterfinals, because they just about got that losing bonus point that got them through ahead of Australia. You know, they would have wanted to have gone in on the back of a win and have a bit of confidence going against that England team who were faltering themselves. So that's going to be an interesting one in the quarterfinals. But Portugal, amazing from them. And, you know, I hope now that this result means that, you know, Portugal rugby is going to go from strength to strength, and we're going to see some support for them, please. Okay, on to then last thing I want to talk about, because we've already gone on for a bit here, is the quarterfinal lineup. So I'm going to do a preview of quarterfinals, etc., later on in the week. So this isn't it. I just wanted to go through what the quarterfinal lineup is. So Quarterfinal 1 is Wales versus Argentina. Who's going to win that? I'm not sure, honestly. But I've had this gut feeling about Wales making a semi-final, so maybe that's going to come true. Next then is quarterfinal 2, Ireland versus New Zealand. Don't have a clue who's going to win this one either. I think this is going to be a trend all the way through. I don't think I know who's going to win any of the quarterfinals, honestly. Ireland are obviously favourites, and it's weird. Ireland being favourites against New Zealand is just weird for me. And yeah, we'll leave that. We'll move on. Quarterfinal 3, England versus Fiji. Two teams have come off, poor performances. Again, don't have a clue who's going to win in that. And then the final one is France versus South Africa. Both teams with really good performances in the pool stages, and both teams at one performance that maybe they'd like back. France versus Uruguay comes to mind, and South Africa versus Ireland. But still, South Africa versus Ireland, their performance was good. It was like I was in awe of how good South Africa were in that game, and I still can't figure out how they lost. I know it's something to do with Ireland being really good, but maybe sometimes with Ireland I have the opposite of being a one-eyed supporter, where I don't notice the good things that Ireland do because I'm trying to be as neutral as possible and focus on what the other team are doing. But South Africa were amazing in that. So again, I don't have a clue. I'm going to have a clue because I'm going to have to make my Super Bowl predictions, which are coming. I'm probably going to make that video today. So, geez, I've only got like a few minutes to make my mind up. But we'll have, so coming for you the rest of the week, kind of more stats for you. I'm going to have the Super Brew kind of results from the latest round, my picks for the quarterfinals, and then we're going to have quarterfinal previews of all of the quarterfinals, and what else then? I think that's it. That's a lot though. I have to say, I've made so many videos through this Rugby World Cup, and I've enjoyed making them all. And I was worried before the tournament that just having to make so many videos, maybe I get sick of it, and maybe I say, right, I gave the channel a go and it's just too much work for me, it's too much effort, and I'm not enjoying the rugby, so knock it on the head. But no, I've enjoyed making the videos, honestly, and I've previewed every single game so far. I'm going to preview every single game to the end of the Rugby World Cup. I've reviewed all but 3 games, and those 3 games, the reason why I didn't review them was because I didn't watch them live, and I haven't been able to catch up with work and stuff. I haven't been able to catch up to watch them fully. I know I was not going to review a Rugby World Cup game based on just highlights, because then I'm lying to you, I'm bullshitting you, and giving you insights into what happened in the game based on somebody's cut in the highlight reel. So I wasn't going to do that. So we only missed 3 though out of it. So there was 40 pool games. So I did 37 reviews of those, and then we had other stuff in the middle there as well. So it's been a busy time for me, but it's been an enjoyable time for me. And again, I just want to say, I'm humbled by the number of people that have chosen. They said, I want to watch Mark's videos, I enjoy them, I want to comment, I want to interact. And it's been great just chatting with people through the weeks. Today I've been responding to some comments as well, and it's just been great. So keep those comments coming. I'd love if you guys as well could hit the like on the video, and on any video that you watch, even if it's just, if you just do it for a day or 2 and then forget about it, it's fine. But if you do that, it just massively helps. It whatever way the algorithm works, if a video gets, 4 or 5 even likes on it rather than 1 or 2, suddenly the views go up massively and it gets shown to more people. So that would help me out massively. But again, I'm just humbled and awed by the people who choose to listen to me prattle on about rugby, honestly. But I'm going to continue prattling on as long as at least one person actually wants to watch the videos. So there's going to be plenty more from me during the week, and I'm just going to leave it there for now.